Well, back in my club days in Sacramento, there was a guy named Mike Byer, who we all recognized as the best sound man in town. Apparently, Ronnie Montrose agreed because he hired him himself and took him out on the road with him. So let's get Mike on the line and ask him to tell us all about it. Joining me on the phone from Las Vegas, Nevada, is Michael Byer. Welcome.
Hi there.
Well, listen, I want to start by asking you about the first time you heard Ronnie Montrose's music. Can you remember what it was and when it was?
It was probably Rock the Nation, and it was probably within a year after that record came out, that came out in '73, I guess. So it was probably '74-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big rock fan back then.
And you heard that and you said, "Whoa, well, who's this band?"
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I loved guitar rock, obviously, and it was new, and I'm like, wow, that guy's great. And then I heard who it was, and I was already a fan of Edgar Winter and Ronnie's playing, so it made sense to me. And I liked everything about it, and of course, loved the singer right along with what Ronnie was doing. So it was just a great package.
Yeah. Jumping later in time, how and when did you meet Ronnie Montrose?
It was about 1986. I was working with Tesla, then City Kid, and they were in the process of making their first record, and I was at home doing stuff, waiting for them to finish, and we were going to tour, and I hadn't been out with anybody yet, and they had, I guess, recommended him or me to him. It was either them or their at the time manager Steve Klausman. One of those two had recommended me to Ronnie. They had a relationship with him already, so he took a chance and took a new kid out there to mix the tour.
So you went and toured with him instead of Tesla?
Well, no, I was waiting for them. They were making their record. They were at Bearsville Studio making their first record.
Okay, that's interesting. How many years and tours did you do with Ronnie?
I just did the one tour because soon after that that just kind of launched my career of touring, and then from then on out I did Q Prime Acts for about 5 years straight, and a bunch of other ones jumped off from that. So I just was busy touring with everybody else. So I never did get to tour with Ronnie again, unfortunately. But that one was pretty memorable. And
in 1986, what would he have been promoting?
He had done a record probably a year or two before that, but really he was out. He was doing the rock stuff again. That was kind of his revival of the original Montrose stuff, and he had actually taken Rick Bird, who I'm sure you know from Sacramento, and was singing. But what was great was the core band was really good that we had. It was Glenn Lech from Gamma playing bass, and the Bay Area drummer Steve Bellino, who was a friend of Troy Laquetta from Tesla. So Troy kind of hit me to Steve, who was great, who was very Carmassi-like, played really big, great player. So we had this amazing band, and this singer out of the clubs in Sacramento, but we were doing all the old stuff.
Well, how extensive was the tour? Was it across the whole country or just West Coast?
Yeah. We actually started in Connecticut and came all the way back across the country. In fact, we drove to Connecticut. That was one of the funny stories of the tour. We drove straight there, and we made it there in something like 58 hours. It was insane.
You drove from California to Connecticut?
Yeah, from Sacramento, because Ronnie came and met us all in Sacramento, and we drove station wagons to get out there.
That's brutal.
Oh, it was really brutal, and it was me and Kenny Nicholson and Rick Bird, and I can't remember who else was in the car. It was like four of us, I think, in the car. We had a couple of them. And drove back there. And Glenn's parents, one of the reasons that they wanted to get there so quick was Glenn's parents lived there in Connecticut, and I guess he wanted to see him for a little bit before we started. So it was quite an ambitious undertaking, to say the least.
I think I might have some insight into the impetus for him wanting to return to that style, because do you remember a club in Sacramento that's like Galactic 3000 or something?
Galactica 2000, yeah.
Galactica
I was
2000.
There for a few shows.
I thought it was 2000. My brother thought it was 3000. We were trying to remember. My brother and I went to see it, and it was like a one-man show that Ronnie Montrose did. And I guess the promotion had been something along the lines of they're trying to promote it like his rocked-out event. And you got there, and he was like playing songs on a Japanese koto and stuff, And I hadn't heard any of the promotion personally, but I guess some of the people at the show were like disappointed how mellow it was, and they wanted to like rock out, and maybe that contributed to not that particular night, but maybe he got that out of his system doing the one man thing. And he did play Town Without Pity, but he did it with pre-recorded tracks like MIDI or something.
Yeah, I'd heard about that stuff too, but Yeah, I knew, from what he had said and the things I'd heard, it was just, he wanted to get back to roots and just rock out. And so that's what we did, and it was great. And what was really cool is it was us and Frank Marino.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just a great double bill. Audiences dug it, and we had a really good, it was summer, it was like June of '86. In fact, it was really interesting, I just found this out, I just saw it the other day, I didn't know it existed. Someone on YouTube, probably who worked at the club, actually had videoed that particular show that we did, and we did one in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up on YouTube, the whole show.
Cool.
Really, really good too. It actually sounds pretty darn good. It was I guess he had some room mics up or something. It wasn't off the console, but
wow.
It's definitely worth seeing. Ronnie plays his butt off. He's playing the gun guitar, which is interesting. The gun guitar with the scope on it.
Yeah, there was a guy who posted on the Ronnie Montrose official Facebook page today that he owns that rifle guitar now. He bought it from Ronnie.
Wow. He broke that on that tour, too. I think he threw it up and went to catch it, and somehow it slipped.
Never a good idea.
Broke.
Well, when you listen to him play night after night after night, does he have an off night, a great night, or is he really consistent every night?
Ronnie's one of those guys that he goes from great to amazing. There were no real off nights for him. He's just that kind of guitar player. He was just always. It was one of the things that always impressed me, even back when I was a teenager. Besides, the whole vibe that he had, which was great. He just had so much technical ability, and he was really precise with his playing. In fact, that brings up another story. It's a friend of mine, Perry Clark, who played in the clubs in Sacramento. You might know him.
I do.
Who's a great guitar player. Grew up as a little kid watching Midnight Special and in concert like many of us did, and he had a reel-to-reel back in the day, and he would record it. Remember they used to do the simulcast. They would do it on like FM radio, and you could watch it on TV. You'd watch the show, and it would play back on your stereo. And he would record right to reel-to-reel at the highest speed. Then he would slow it down so he could learn the guitar licks.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he'd listen to and this is back in the day, all the great classic rock guitar players.
Yeah.
So one of them was Edgar Winter with Ronnie. And he said, man, I'd slow all those things down, all those shows down. And he goes, of everybody that was on those shows, and he saw just about everybody there was out there, he said Ronnie was by far, he said you'd slow it down and every note was precise, man. Everything was clean. He said it was just amazing how good of technically good of a player he was. He said that was, and then of course that was followed by close, second by like Rick Derringer and Joe Walsh. He said the thing that was the worst was he Richie Blackmore was just a garbled mess, even at like less than half speed.
Wow.
But he said Ronnie was just incredible. It was just amazing to behold.
Yeah, he's definitely in control of the instrument. It's funny you mentioned Richie Blackmore because you're talking about Montrose in 1973 with the seminal album. You're talking about Deep Purple in 1973 with Machine Head, a seminal album. Then you're talking about into the 80s with Ronnie Montrose going into Gamma and doing more of an 80s thing, and Richie Blackmore doing Rainbow with more of an 80s thing and incorporating trying to keep true to their guitar playing within a structure of, a video-oriented or a keyboard-oriented sound. So some parallels there, but I'd pick Ronnie over Richie myself.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I enjoyed his playing a lot more, and just was more moved by it, always, and just his sense of just the straight ahead rock that he was doing was great. I just really loved it.
Yeah, he's pretty rare. He's sort of in that Jeff Beck category. I wouldn't even put him there because in terms of being able to play rock and his other tangents that he goes on. Because even when Jeff Beck doesn't play rock in the sense that Montrose played rock, so the versatility of his playing and his interests, the solo albums he did when he seemed like Open Fire, where he could really delve into acoustic or just not have to worry about vocals and things. He had some really interesting musical ideas.
No, he really did. In fact, that was the very first Montrose show I ever saw was on the Open Fire tour back in, I guess, 78. I saw him up in Carson City. Me and a buddy took the drive up there and saw him play, and I think Pat Travers was up there, but Ronnie was just amazing. It was just awesome to see him play that, the stuff from Open Fire, because it was he pretty much supported that record on that tour.
Well, that's been a theme tonight because the first time I ever heard of Ronnie Montrose was Town Without Pity on the Midnight Special, and J.K. Northrup was just telling us about the open fire tour that you're talking about, and it wasn't the starting point of his music. I'd heard the Edgar Winter stuff too. I might not have known which was Ronnie and which was Rick Derringer, but "Free Ride," was a well-known track.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But well, let me ask you about your checkerboard Vans.
So how do you know about that?
I don't want to. Well, I know from you. You wrote it online.
Oh, I did write that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You saw that. Oh,
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, that was when I was first touring Ronnie. In fact, let me include kind of my whole introduction to Ronnie. We first got there and we started doing shows. We first got back east, and I think it was either the first or second day sound check. One of the things that I'd been warned about was Ronnie. Ronnie has this particular thing with the snare drum. It's really important to him. And sure enough, he came out to the front of house, to the console. We were sound checking, and I'd already kind of gotten some sound check time in before he got there. And right away, he walked up there and he said, "Okay, Mike," he goes, I really don't ask for much, but the one thing I'm really particular about is I want a certain snare sound. It really has, kind of a real nice pop to it and some bite, because it's the whole rock thing. That's what makes it happen. So he walked up to the console and said, "Okay, Steve, hit the snare." And I already had the snare up, and he hit the snare, and he turned around and looked at me right away, and he said, "Okay, you got it." He's like, didn't touch anything. He's like, "Great,
nice.
You know what you're doing." That was the first for me. That was such a big thing. That was my first, kind of seal of approval from a rock star, which kind of really helped, start me on my career. But anyway, as our relationship developed over the tour, Ronnie would look down, and I wore these checkerboard Vans almost every day, and he just would. He was a real funny guy. Ronnie was just had kind of a dry sense of humor, but it was really good, and he used it all the time. Especially with if he liked it, he'd use that sense of humor. So he would look down at the checkerboard Vans every day, and he'd just shake his head. He'd be, "Oh my God, don't wear those again." So of course I would wear them again, and so it became a running joke with us. And then I didn't see him for a few years. I'd started touring. I did like the first few Tesla tours, or first couple. And then we all came back for the BAMI Awards, and Ronnie was there. And we were there playing, I think that was our first acoustic show ever, which later became, later we did the acoustic album.
Yeah.
So I saw Ronnie there, and he's like, just it was really good to see him. He gave me a big hug and everything, and I'd missed him a bunch. And he smiled at me, nodded his head in approval, like, you did good, kid. And he goes, "You still got those checkerboard Vans?" So,
for our listeners, the BAMIs are the Bay Area version of the Grammys. When you mentioned the snare sound, your reputation among Sacramento musicians was for getting the best drum sounds. I mean, I remember that specifically. So,
thanks.
So I don't know if it was Ronnie was told that, but his ears told him the first time he worked with them, so there you go.
Yeah, that was a great feeling for, a kid in his 20s who had never worked with with a real big rock star before, and that started kind of my career. That's all I did for about a decade was big tours, and, I got Ronnie to thank for that. Without that vote of confidence, I don't know if I would have had the, cojones to continue on. Well,
it's a credit we would all want on our resume in any capacity, to have worked with Ronnie Montrose.
Yeah, definitely. I was thrilled to have that experience, and to be able to talk about it now. And it just, I wish he was still around. I miss him already.
Yeah. Well, I think we all do, especially the people like you who personally knew him. I've got to get to some more calls, and I have to let you go. But I want to thank you for talking to us about your experiences with Ronnie Montrose, and ask you. There's a particular tune of his you want us to play as your personal tribute to him.
Yeah, What's Gone Is Gone from Gamma 3.
Ah, yeah, my favorite Gamma album, Gamma 3.
I love that song. The feel of it, it's kind of got, it's got a real message to it, and it makes you feel good just to listen to that song, and I think it's a real appropriate song for right now, and I just always loved it since the first time I heard it.
I guess the only silver lining in these situations is the fact that the person's gone, but the music is never going to be gone. So
thank God we'll always have that, and that we got to be a part of it.
I do, and I appreciate it. So let's go ahead and spin that. Thank Michael Beyer for speaking with us. This is What's Gone Is Gone.
just